Several years ago, I met a Jew who was raised in a town in Morocco. And he told me about the population of this town, the Jewish population of this town, which was in the tens of thousands. And he said that every person in the town was a Shomer Shabbat. They all observed the Sabbath. He said when he was a little boy, his father would send him ahead by about 3 hours in the afternoon to get a seat at the shir, at the lecture of the rabbi, which was a long, long lecture that took place in the afternoon. And this was, as it were, the entertainment for the week. This was the place to be. The entire community would gather together as Shabbat was coming out, as the sun was setting on a Saturday afternoon, to listen to the lecture. Now that may have seemed something that was really incredible and massive and an enormous crowd, but in fact, this is not something that is that unique. We find it throughout the Jewish world, that Jews would gather together on Shabbat and they would study Torah. When a person is working the entire week, specifically in the old days when most people's work was manual labor, it was very difficult, it was very tiring. A person would come home at the end of the day, there were no electric lights, they would have dinner, and they would be completely exhausted and fall asleep. There wasn't that much time for Torah study. But on Shabbat, when one didn't have to work, there was a sense of calmness, a sense of connection to family. One would try to eat to the best of one's ability, good food, enjoy singing with the family, and then to retire to the Beit HaMidrash, to the little house of study in the shtetl, in the town, wherever it may have been, whether it was in Europe, whether it was in Central Europe, whether it was in the Mediterranean basin, and there people would study. And they would study whatever their heart desired. Maybe it was Talmud, maybe it was Midrash, the non-legal aspects of the Torah, maybe it was the portion of the week. There were different people giving all different types of lectures on topics of Torah. And it would seem that the source for this custom is from this week's parsha. The parsha is called Vayakhel. Vayakhel Moshe. Moshe gathered the entire Jewish people when he came down from the mountain after he had been there for 120 days. He came down and he said to the Jewish people, I'm going to tell you about the Mishkan, the tabernacle. We're going to build a tabernacle. But before he told them that, he told them about Shabbat. And he said, although we're going to be involved in this incredible project of building the tabernacle, but Shabbat comes first. And therefore, when the sun sets on Friday afternoon, we put down our tools and we do not build the tabernacle. But the wording that the Torah uses is Vayakhel. He gathered them together to teach them about Shabbat. So we see from there that when it comes to Shabbat, there should be a gathering of people, a kehillah that comes together to learn. This may have been the very first reference to such a subject. When I was at yeshiva, our Shabbat was a very special time. Of course, the bochrim, the young students would gather together, we would sing, we would pray together, we would listen to the Torah reading, we would have our meals, we would learn Torah with one another. There was the Kiddush Bracha after the morning services where the Rosh Yeshiva, the head of the yeshiva, gave a long, long talk. And one particular Shabbat, there was a visiting rabbi from Israel. Now in Israel, they've got a working week of 6 days. So when you go to a shul on Shabbat, usually they get through the service very, very quickly on a Shabbat morning because everybody wants to go home, have something to eat, and have a little bit of a snooze because the week begins the very next day. So everything is really very quick. It's chick-chack. But at the yeshiva, where I studied in Johannesburg, things were slow. There was a calmness. There was no rush. So this visiting rabbi from Israel was walking to the home of the Rosh Yeshiva after the Shabbat morning services, after the long shi'ur that he had given. And the Rosh Yeshiva felt a little bit apologetic. And he said to him, look, I'm so sorry. I know you're from Israel. There in Israel, you like to rush through everything and get through it. And here it's already like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we haven't had a little nap yet on Shabbat. And the rabbi turned to the Rosh Yeshiva and said, don't worry. You have nothing to apologize for because you are using Shabbos for what it was given for. That's the point of Shabbos, not to rush through it, not to run around in a wild way, but to use the opportunity to soak up that spirituality. When else during the week do we have that time? That's what Shabbos is so special for. And that's the message that Moshe taught the Jewish people. We put down everything, even the building of the Mishkan, and we involve ourselves in spiritual pursuits and in the study of Torah. And in that way, we make our Shabbat as sweet as possible. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.